Okay, so have you ever thought about what reality really is?
All the time.
Like when you hear people like Elon Musk saying that there's like a 1 in a billion chance that we're living in base reality,
Yeah.
it just kind of makes you stop and think, huh,
Right.
what if there's something more going on here than what we see on the surface?
Absolutely.
So today we're diving into this really fascinating article called The Revelation Matrix.
The revelation matrix. Yeah.
And it tackles this big question head on, what is the true nature of our reality?
Exactly. And I think what makes this article so unique is the way it brings together all these different perspectives like theology and philosophy
Right.
and even modern physics.
Yeah, and this isn't going to be like some boring college lecture or anything.
No, not at all.
We're going to be exploring these different ideas from all these different fields and seeing how they connect to give us a more complete picture of reality.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle.
It is like a puzzle, yeah.
We're taking all these different pieces from different boxes and seeing how they fit together.
Exactly. And hopefully along the way you'll have some of those aha moments where things just click into place.
Definitely. No, I did.
Me too, me too.
So one of the first things the article does is it kind of challenges our assumptions about what we perceive with our senses.
Right.
It starts with this verse from the Bible, 2 Corinthians 5:7, which says, "We live by faith, not by sight."
Yeah, and that makes you think, right? Like, are our five senses really giving us the whole picture?
Exactly. What if there's more to reality than what we can see, hear, touch, taste, or smell?
Right. And the article goes on to talk about this idea of multiple dimensions in the Bible,
Yeah.
like in Ephesians 6:12, where it talks about spiritual warfare against powers in heavenly realms.
Right. And that's not just some abstract concept.
No.
It suggests that there are other layers of reality that coexist with our own that we might not be aware of.
And the article uses this really cool example from the Bible to illustrate this point.
What's that?
The story of Elisha in Kings 6. Do you remember that one where his servant is freaking out because he sees this massive enemy army surrounding them?
Yeah.
And Elisha prays, and then the servant's eyes are open, and he sees this huge angelic army surrounding them.
It's like a hidden reality is revealed.
Exactly. It's like there's this invisible world that's actively present and interacting with the visible world that we see.
Yeah. And that raises some questions about how much we're actually perceiving with our limited senses.
Right. So if we're talking about these unseen dimensions and stuff, the
Yeah.
article brings up the work of this scholar named Dr. Michael Heiser.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
And he has this really interesting perspective on biblical narratives.
What's that?
He talks about this idea of the divine council, which is like this group of powerful spiritual beings or sons of God who are part of God's cosmic order.
Interesting.
Yeah, and these aren't just like vague spiritual forces or anything.
Okay.
They're distinct, powerful entities who play a role in the biblical story.
So it's like a whole other level of complexity.
Yeah, it's like adding a whole new dimension to our understanding of the Bible.
And if we have these hidden dimensions and all these spiritual beings, how do they all interact?
Right.
That's where the article introduces this concept of biblical wisdom,
Okay.
often personified as Sophia.
Sophia.
And it's presented as this crucial link between the spiritual and physical realms.
It's like an interface.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the divine interface.
Right. So wisdom isn't just some abstract quality that God possesses. It's
Well-
more like an active force, a connector between God and his creation.
It's how the divine interacts with the physical world.
And what's really cool is that Proverbs 8 describes wisdom as being present with God during creation.
Really?
Yeah, it's like wisdom was there from the very beginning, actively involved in bringing order to the universe.
So it's not just a characteristic.
No, it's like a co-creator almost.
Yeah, and that emphasizes its ongoing and vital role in how God interacts with reality even today.
And to help us grasp this concept, the article uses this analogy of a computer science interface. So think of it like how different software programs can talk to each other through an interface.
Right.
In this context, wisdom is like the interface between God and his creation.
I like that analogy.
It's a good one.
It makes it much easier to understand.
Yeah, so if wisdom is the interface, what is it that's actually holding everything together?
That's the big question, right?
Right. What's the foundation of this interconnected reality?
Yeah, and this is where the article gets really profound.
Okay.
It argues that Christ, as the Logos described in John 1:1-3, is not just a theological concept, but a metaphysical reality.
The Logos.
Yeah, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Through him, all things were made.
Wow.
So the idea is that Christ isn't just part of reality.
Right.
He's the very principle through which all of reality exists.
So it's like he's the source code.
Exactly. He's the foundation, the bedrock of everything.
And Colossians 1.17 reinforces this by saying that in Christ, all things hold together.
Right.
So it's like there's this continuous moment by moment divine sustaining of everything we experience.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is, and this leads to a really provocative idea
What's that?
that the most fundamental layer of reality isn't matter or energy,
Okay.
but divine consciousness itself.
Wow. So it's like our consciousness is a reflection of this divine consciousness,
It's like we're all connected to this one source of consciousness.
which would completely change our understanding of the universe.
It would turn our materialistic worldview upside down.
Yeah. Instead of matter and energy being the primary building blocks of reality, it's consciousness.
Exactly. And then matter and energy arise from consciousness.
That's a huge shift.
It is a huge shift.
So how does modern science fit into all of this?
Right.
Particularly something like quantum physics, which already seems pretty mind-bending on its own.
Yeah.
Does the article address that?
It does, and it actually draws some really unexpected connections.
Okay, I'm curious.
So, for example, it mentions Roger Penrose's theory. Yeah, he's a physicist and mathematician.
Right.
And his theory proposes that consciousness might actually emerge from quantum processes within the microtubules of our brain cells.
Microtubules.
Yeah, they're these tiny structures inside our neurons.
Okay.
And while this theory is still being debated,
Sure.
the idea that our subjective experience could be rooted in the quantum realm is fascinating.
Yeah, it suggests a connection between the very small and the very big,
Exactly.
the quantum world and the world of consciousness.
Right, and then there's the observer effect in quantum physics.
Yeah, that one's always tripped me out.
Right, it's the idea that simply observing a quantum particle can influence its state.
Like our observation creates reality.
In a way, yeah. And the article makes a really interesting parallel here to the biblical idea of God's constant observation holding reality in place.
Oh, wow.
It quotes Job 34.21, which says, "For his eyes are upon the ways of a man, and he sees all his steps."
So God's awareness is what sustains the universe.
That's the suggestion.
Yeah.
It's like observation, whether human or divine, plays a fundamental role in shaping reality.
I mean, that's pretty profound.
It is, and the connections don't stop there.
Keep going.
The article also draws a parallel between God speaking creation into existence in Genesis 1
Yeah.
and the quantum concept of wave function collapse.
Okay.
So in quantum physics, a wave function describes the probabilities of a particle's state.
Right.
But when it's observed, the wave function collapses and the particle takes on a definite state.
Yeah.
And the article suggests that God's conscious act of speaking brought the universe into being in a similar way.
Like his words collapse the wave function of the universe.
Exactly. It's like he spoke and reality crystallized into existence.
That's a whole new way of looking at creation.
It is. It's like these ancient stories are resonating with modern scientific discoveries.
Yeah, and it all points back to this idea of consciousness as being fundamental.
Right? Consciousness is at the root of everything.
And speaking of consciousness, the article also delves into the different layers of our being.
Okay, like soul and spirit.
Yeah. How does it distinguish between those?
Right. We tend to use those terms interchangeably, but the article makes a clear distinction.
Okay, listen.
So the soul is described as the aspect of us that's most closely tied to our individual consciousness and personality.
Okay.
And it suggested that it might even be linked to those quantum processes in the brain that we were talking about earlier.
So the soul is like the bridge between our physical and quantum selves.
Exactly. It connects our biological selves with our spiritual nature.
And what about the spirit?
The spirit is described as our deeper, more direct connection to the divine.
Okay.
It's the part of us that can communicate and relate with God on a profound level.
This is like our spiritual antenna.
Yeah, and the article references 1 Corinthians 2.11,
Okay.
which says that just as only your own spirit knows your thoughts,
Right.
similarly, only the Spirit of God knows the thoughts of God.
So it's like this special connection that only the spirit can access.
Exactly. It's like a direct line to the divine.
That's amazing.
So we're complex beings existing in this multi-layered reality.
Yeah, it's more than just the physical world.
Right, and if we understand this, it can really change how we live our lives.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
The article talks about several key areas that are reframed by this perspective.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it changes how we view prayer.
Okay.
Instead of seeing it as just sending a request out to some distant being,
Right.
it becomes direct engagement with Christ, who, as we've discussed, is the very foundation and sustainer of the universe.
So it's more like a conversation.
Yeah, it's like a direct line to the source.
And it's not just about asking for things.
No, it's about connecting with the very power that holds everything together.
That's a powerful way to think about prayer.
It is, and it can make a real difference in how we approach it.
And what about spiritual warfare?
Well, if reality is multidimensional, then spiritual warfare isn't just a metaphor for our internal struggles.
Right.
It's an actual interaction that's happening between different dimensions.
Like Ephesians 6.1 talks about.
Exactly. It's not just happening in our heads. It's happening in the unseen realm.
So it's something to be taken seriously.
Absolutely. We need to be vigilant and discerning.
And it also changes how we view prophecy and eschatology.
Eschatology.
Yeah, the study of end times.
Right?
So instead of focusing solely on dramatic events happening on Earth,
Yeah.
the article suggests that the future era of God's fuller presence on Earth might be more about a thinning of the veil between the physical and spiritual realms.
It's like the two worlds will become more integrated.
Exactly. It's a shift from focusing on purely earthly events to anticipating a greater integration of the divine into our everyday experience.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
It is, and I was really intrigued by the idea that science itself can be seen as a form of worship in this framework.
Oh, yeah, that's a beautiful concept.
It is, right?
It's like the act of scientific discovery, exploring the universe from the quantum level to the cosmos,
Yeah.
can be a way of uncovering the mind and the creative power of God.
So it's like science is revealing the fingerprints of God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Understanding the laws of physics,
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of mathematics, the complexity of biology,
Right.
all become ways of appreciating and even worshiping the Creator through his creation.
So it's not science versus faith.
No.
It's science and faith working together.
They're two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And finally, the article brings it all back to our daily lives with this powerful verse from 2 Corinthians 4.18.
Okay.
It says, "We fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen."
So what's the takeaway there?
Well, if we're living in this multidimensional reality,
Yeah.
we need to recognize that there is a spiritual dimension to our lives that's always present.
It's not just something we do on Sundays.
Right. It's not just about going to church or praying before meals.
It's about recognizing that our actions and choices in this visible realm have consequences in the unseen realm.
So we need to live with an awareness of this broader reality.
Exactly. And make choices that align with our spiritual values.
So let's recap this incredible journey we've been on today. We've explored this article, The Revelation Matrix, and its fascinating integration of scripture philosophy and quantum physics.
It's been a wild ride.
It has, and the key takeaways seem to be the biblical teaching of a multidimensional reality,
Right.
the central role of Christ as the Logos in underpinning all existence,
Yeah.
the concept of wisdom as this crucial divine interface,
The connection.
the connector, and then the surprising echoes of these ideas in modern quantum physics.
Especially the idea of consciousness being fundamental.
Right. It's like science is catching up with what the ancient scriptures have been saying all along.
It's really mind-blowing.
It is, and ultimately this perspective challenges us to move beyond a purely materialistic view of the world
Yeah.
and to embrace a view of reality that's richer, more interconnected, and deeply infused with the divine.
And a more holistic view.
It is, and it calls us to live with a sense of awe and intentionality,
Right.
recognizing our place as spiritual beings who are constantly interacting with a larger, often unseen reality.
It's a call to live more consciously.
Exactly. So as you go about your day, from this moment forward,
Okay.
really consider how this deeper understanding of reality might shift the way you experience your everyday life
Yeah.
and your interactions with the world around you.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but it's worth pondering.
Definitely.
Because if we can grasp this truth, it can truly transform our lives.
It can, and I think that's what this article is really trying to do.
To open our eyes to a new way of seeing the world.
To help us see the unseen.
Exactly.
And to live more fully in the reality that we're a part of.
Absolutely. So that's something to think about as we wrap up this deep dive.
I know, I will be thinking about it.
I too.
It's been a great conversation.
It has. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deeper into the mysteries of reality.
And keep an open mind,
Absolutely. An open mind is key.
because you never know what you might discover.
That's the beauty of
It
it.
is the beauty of the journey.
See you next time.
See you later.
Bye.